was not expecting that at all.
Life happens.
Right.
And we're not in control. It's never about the addiction. It's about we have lost connection.
If I just have these great jobs, if I have all this money, then I'll be happy.
They're not living their lives how I think they should.
How may I serve? Or another way to say that is, what's up? Today, we have the pleasure for this Conscious Conversation segment of having Tina along with her beautiful daughter, Julia. And so we're going to move into a conscious conversation, and maybe it takes the form of a session and moving into how may we serve. But often I receive clients, and not only as individuals, but also as I often receive partners, husband, wife, lovers. I often receive people with their children, because as we move through life, there's often different things where, ooh, this is conflict. How can we move into a greater space of clarity, of harmony as we move through this thing called life? So for today's conscious conversation with both of you, first of all, I just want to express I'm so grateful. I love both of you, and here we get to have the experience of moving into having really an honest conversation. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when we think about, there's such a projection of what it should be to be the daughter, the mother, and oh, wait a minute, how can it be more of an experience of flow, or what's going on with me, or where are my thoughts? So within that, how may I serve? What I've modeled for my children in my past, there's certain places within my own personal evolution that it really wasn't great modeling such things. One of the things that I modeled to my children is that the man in the relationship is more important than the woman. And within that, I know, and she's given me the finger, like I'm getting the pointy finger, like, oh yeah, about that. But that's the reality. That's what was modeled to me as a child, and I took it right into a marriage, and thankfully, ultimately, a divorce, because that energetically, once I opened up to loving, valuing, and respecting myself, I needed to have a new experience. And it's not about making any of my experience wrong. That was certainly a part of my evolution. But what are some of the things that you modeled to your children?
Right. That's actually a good topic, is how I relate with my husband, her father, and how I do that gets passed on to what my kids pick up. And it's also an inspiration for why I do a lot of the work that we do together, is because I know it directly can benefit them as well.
What are some of the things you modeled? You talk about you're moving towards a place of self-love. So perhaps
personal responsibility is a huge part. It's easy for me to want to blame him, or anyone else, any other relationship, for something that is going wrong in my life. Or if he would just talk to me nicer, our relationship would be great. Or if he didn't work as much, or if he wasn't on his phone all the time, or if he recognized me for this or that. I didn't think I was worthy enough. I thought I needed to be doing something, proving myself worthy, having the perfect house, or cooking the perfect meal, or having the perfect children who are going to do exactly what I say, or, my life had to show for it that way, and then maybe I would earn the love from my husband or someone else even.
Wow, that's so powerfully stated. Good for you.
It felt confusing coming out, actually, but I know what I'm trying to say.
You've you've done a fabulous job. Just really, here's the slice of life,
Oh, yeah.
and this is what I experienced, and if I'm not mistaken, it didn't feel good.
No.
And it hasn't felt good.
No.
Trying to, okay, you change and then I can feel better.
Mhm.
Or the children should look a certain way
Mhm.
or take a certain path. And how painful, because again, life is doing life and it's not necessarily like we think it should be or what someone else judges it as it should be.
Right. But the idea of possibility, the idea of something out there that I don't know what it looks like because I haven't had it. I didn't live it. But the possibility that it exists drives me, motivates me to want to see a different way, a different belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Maybe mine isn't.
Absolutely.
Real.
So, for you, how has that translated in your relationship with Julia?
It's funny because you said how things model. You felt like your relationship you model to your kids, the role man and woman should have in a relationship. It's funny because I mean you say all the stuff about like if only he would change, then I'll be happy. I think that more than that has influenced me, more than that has been you changing it and figuring it out that that's not true. That actually was what opened my eyes. Like before, I mean, I guess if it had continued as I grew older, it would probably have an effect. But my eyes really opened when you started noticing that that wasn't right. Because now I'm like, well, maybe I should notice when I think other people should change, how to just find it with myself. And watching her growth, I've been able to find
Wow. So
validation over here. I'm
right?
feeling like
completely.
Yes.
I mean, that's
So
I mean, I tell people not all the time, but like when I have the opportunity, I'm like, I don't know where I would be without seeing my mom's personal growth, because I know where she's come from, and she's come from a lot of expectations have been thrown on her entire life, and to have what like 40 plus years of that, and then like after all that time, she then figured out that she wanted to change it, and even at that age, she still has done more than I could do in that amount of time, and she's had more leading up to the point where she decided to change than I did, which makes me be able to find it in myself so much easier, and I'm so grateful for it.
wow.
So to be able to see the change in her, I can see the change in myself.
Julia, can you speak to what you have noticed with your mom finding this path of doing her work, of opening up to a greater self-love? What's it been like for you in your seat? Like, what's it been like for you? What have you noticed? What have the changes looked like?
Well, like the change of, I mean, we both love my dad, like completely, but like the change in how much more respect she has for herself and she can stand up for herself and what she believes in. He's a great person, but I mean, everyone has their opinions. And before, I mean, even the male-female relationship ties into it, where we're just expected to, they might know better, and you just kind of like, you feel like your own beliefs are shameful, even sometimes. And, I mean, that's just an example. I don't really have, like, a boyfriend that I'm applying this to, but just in the world, being able to stand up for what I believe in, like, with an open heart, still loving them. Like, okay, the biggest lesson, for real, has been loving someone even when you don't understand them, and accepting them without understanding. And that's something that I don't think she could do before, because she always wanted to control people. And I mean,
manipulate.
Yeah, completely. And she's just
by making them like me.
Yeah,
You mean? And yeah.
And through some of the toughest relationships in her life, she's learned to just accept them even when she doesn't understand, and still love them even if they don't do the things you'd like them to. Even so, being able to, I can find that now.
Wow.
I can completely, and I never could find any of this before she started it at all. I had no, like, looking back on it, I feel like until she started her journey, I was blind.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm a fish in water. Why would I ever think of anything else?
Yeah.
And doing this work. And
I'm having an aha moment over here.
Okay, what's your
Because
aha
generationally,
moment?
this is coming back now, what she's saying, and what you just said, fish in. that's pretty much how I lived my life. And I love my parents, but I don't think my mom got that part of the work.
In a possibility that it could be
That there is a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say she did it wrong or any of that, but because I didn't see it modeled that way, I was kind of a fish out of water. I was living from their belief system because it's all I knew.
Absolutely.
Until I started questioning it, talking to you and meeting more people who thought differently and got my mind going and
Right.
thinking, okay, maybe there is a different way to do this, and why not try it? The other way doesn't seem to be working so hot.
Right. A lot of times people don't find this work until their pain is greater than their fear. And all of a sudden, when we're getting our booty kicked by life, and oh my gosh, this is so over the top painful, I don't know what I do, then often I'll get a phone call or they'll have a session with me or they'll show up at a workshop because they're trying to do something in a new way and have a new experience with it. So that makes complete sense.
But it's really cool to hear now from this perspective. Isn't that crazy how that works?
That your work is impacting others, but now you're hearing it and you're actually getting the feedback. Thank you so much, Julia. I didn't
I
expect
could go on
this
for a full hour. I really could.
But that will impact your children or
That's
your
one-
relationships.
Honestly, that's one thing I am extremely grateful for is, I mean, if I could change this much, it's only been like 5 years since you started doing this work, and I've changed so radically, and I mean, as I go forward in my life, the self-improvement that I know is going to occur naturally with this view on life, I can see it happening in the relationships around me, my friendships, everywhere, and if I do have kids or husband,
May have more work to do, but we don't need to rush it. Was that a gag reflex?
I think it was.
Plenty of time. We're okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Or not. Like,
Yeah,
whatever.
I know.
You'll know. It's all good. Life does life. And
I hope that, like, if I were to, like, find a long partner, they'd never see this.
Maybe they could appreciate all where you've come.
Yeah, like, where you come
From how far you've come.
Like, yeah. Sorry. I bet I love you. Sure I do.
Okay, well now, adding to this conversation,
Yes.
not all people in my family or relationships get it or want to get this work. Like Julia's been pretty open to what's going on with me, and she's watched me evolve and stuff,
Right.
and we spent a lot of time together.
Right.
My son, I'm sure, is affected too, and my husband,
Absolutely.
I know they are, but I'm not sure they would verbalize it the same way or understand it the same way.
Absolutely.
But it still affects them.
Well, of course it impacts them because all of a sudden you're opening up to self-love, and out of that extension, all of a sudden, instead of not having a voice and suppressing, repressing, and depressing, hey, I am having a voice, and no, that doesn't necessarily feel good for me, or I want this instead of this, and yeah, go ahead, I'm not going to participate out of love and value and respect for myself. You may not use any of those words, but that's what the actions are. You're more grounded in the place of what would love do now? And how do I interact as a family unit? And who am I in relationship? To not just throwing myself under the bus out of self-loathing and self-hatred and the story of I'm not enough and I'm not good enough.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you're demonstrating to daughter, and daughters, and demonstrating to son and husband, hey, I love me. Do you love me? And it's okay if they don't, or if they do. It's about their own relationship with themselves, and they extend to you accordingly. So, for example, one of my master teachers has been my beautiful son, and he's so powerful and so strong. And as a part of that, it's been a place of he hasn't always experienced feeling the love for mama, and his demonstration of that through his high school years was very severe. And that was the greatest gift to me because it allowed me to do my work. Okay, he doesn't love me. Part of my story was, you should love me. You're my son. And he wasn't buying any of it. And that was the greatest gift possible because it allowed me to anchor into a new experience or a new possibility of, okay, it's not his job. I wanted to say it was his job. It wasn't. It was completely my job. And so through learning to negotiate and do my work to love, value, and respect myself, then all of a sudden he didn't have a say about it. I got to love him and he had no say about it. I took my power back from him. And it was so empowering to see how that impacted him in his life and his choices. And really, for the past couple of years, we've had an amazing relationship. But that 4 years of disconnect was imperative in my growth. So we don't have to make anybody's story wrong about how they feel about us, but it's about recognizing that how we experience other people in our world is a direct reflection, not only indirect, but direct reflection of our lives and our relationship with ourselves.